everybody. We are here today for another installment of the Let's Take a Seat at the Table web series. Today we have myself again, Austin Creswell, moderating the conversation. And then we are here with Annjeanette Martin and Gionna Scott, who are two of the founders of Let's Take a Seat at the Table. And today we have a mayoral candidate for Gainesville, Miss Angela Williams.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Angela. We
Thank
definitely
you.
appreciate it. As is with all of our Let's Take a Seat at the Table events, we are hoping to have some open, honest conversation and some courageous conversation surrounding some potentially uncomfortable topics. And we hope you enjoy the conversation today. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and dive right in with our first question.
Okay.
Angela, why are you running for mayor of Gainesville?
I'm running for mayor. I'll be right up front and honest with you. I am nowhere near political. I'm doing this because I'm giving back to my home community, which is Gainesville. I moved back home in 2016. I saw the difference from the time that I lived here in 2005 to 2016, and there was a lot of changes in here and a lot of stuff that I noticed that was different in Gainesville compared to back in 2005. And I just want to get our community to where we're loving on each other, we're showing support, our local businesses, different events, things like that, that we come together, just take a deep breath for at least a day, couple of hours or whatever, and just relax, have fun, have a conversation with each other and not do our busyness of everyday life.
Yeah. So did you grow up in Gainesville? You said that you moved back home to Gainesville.
I moved to Gainesville when I was 16.
Okay.
And then I kind of lived off and on from, I moved away to Oklahoma when I was, 18. Then I moved back to Gainesville in 99, moved to South Texas, moved back in 2002. Got married to my husband here in 2005 at Leonard Park. And then we moved away in the end of July in 2005. And then we came back in 2016.
If you don't mind me asking, why did y'all move away and what made you come back?
My husband's family lives in California.
Okay.
And he moved out here to be with me because this is where I was and my family was. So he came out here to us. And because my family couldn't travel and I wanted my family to be here for our wedding and stuff. Yeah. His family can travel really well. So they came out for the wedding and stuff. Well, he was missing his family and stuff. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead and go. So him, my daughter and I, we all moved to California and stuff. And then what brought us back is I missed home. This is home to me. So I wanted to come home. My daughter moved to Ardmore with our granddaughters and stuff. And my husband's like, well, do you want to go? And I says, yeah. He says, okay, you pick the spot. And I says, I want to go home. He goes, all right, here's what we got. So we came home.
Yeah, and been here for 5 years now.
Yep.
That's awesome. That passion for the town is that roots that you have here.
Yes.
Setting roots, Gionna, myself, Annjeanette, we're all similarly the roots here. I'm born and raised here in the house that we're in. And moved away for 9 hours away for college in Santa Fe, and then came back in 2018 and been here ever since. Like you, I similarly am like, the community has room for improvement,
yes.
Has a lot of great things, but
yes.
we want to move forward with them.
We do.
Annjeanette, Gionna, do y'all want to share your stories as well with Angela?
Sure, I'll start. I'm Annjeanette Martin. I was born and raised here as well. I'm actually born in a little clinic in McKinney, but don't tell him.
Okay, our secret.
But of course, came right back. My family, my mother still owns the house and still lives in the area. Lives on the west side of town. She still lives in the same house that we grew up in as well. And I have been around. Graduated high school from here, and then went to college at UNT, so I didn't go out very far. I mean, I went to NCTC, got 2 degrees from NCTC here in Gainesville, and then went to UNT. So I just a little jump, just a little hop, skip and a jump away. And then I moved out. I live right in between Denton and McKinney. It's on the 380 corridor right now. I moved there about 11 years ago. So, so I do live there now, but roots are always here.
Yep.
You know, my parents are still here. I've always rooted here. So this is always, like you said, this is home. And so every time I want to come home, then that's where I come home, and with parents and everything. And our kids are, you know, my kids know this place very well and know it very well. So, so yeah, that's just kind of that's how I feel. I relate to you very much when you say this is home, because that's, I mean, no matter if I go in the Metroplex and kind of do my thing, when they say you're coming home, they know that it's Gainesville.
Yep. Yep.
I'm born and raised here. I've never left, so I've just been here. I went to school at TWU, but I commuted, so I also went to NCTC. My mom's family is actually from like the Chicago area. I could not tell you how we ended up in Gainesville, but they're from Chicago. My dad's family's from Dallas, but somehow we planted here. Every time I leave, if it's traveling or whatever, like I honestly cannot wait to get home. I don't know what it is. Like people are always like, "You don't want to move to Denton or you don't want to move to Dallas." My dad mainly, he's like, "You sure you don't want to come this way?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good right where I am." So I generally love being in Gainesville and hope to raise my daughter here, and I just want to build my roots in Gainesville. So
Yeah, my mom had a nail salon here back in the 90s.
Very
So
cool.
that's how ground rooted I am here. And
Yeah.
I used to sit in the salon with her, and it sparked me to become a nail tech. So I ended up going to school and getting my license and stuff like that. So,
Very cool.
and then we owned a business together.
Very cool.
That's
sweet.
that's
Did y'all
awesome.
own a business here together?
Yes.
Okay, very
Yep.
cool. So, are there any particular life experiences that you want to expand upon that would benefit you if you are elected as mayor?
Some life experience, current life or previous life?
I mean, everything that's led you up to here is part of that story. So,
There's so much that, I mean, you know, just like basically growing up here is just having the business here and stuff like that, knowing some of the people. When we came back, my husband, we started out in California. He was going to diaconal school to become a deacon and everything. And so when we came home, he continued. And because we moved to a different diocese and stuff, he kind of had to start over, but ended up being ordained. And he actually was ordained the very first deacon at St. Paul's Church, and currently still is. And being there, being a clergy wife and stuff, I have learned a lot of compassion and patience with different aspects of my life.
Yeah.
I can sit down and talk to somebody and understand a little bit more on the liturgical side of where they're coming from, where I didn't really before. And then I also started going to culinary school when we came home, and my culinary school was online. So my kitchen was my classroom. So when it comes up to do my externship time, I couldn't go into a restaurant and stuff like that. So the priest and my husband and stuff were talking and everything, and they had been talking about opening up a soup kitchen. So they started St. Martha's Kitchen, and we were going to do it during Lent and Easter and stuff as a trial basis to see how it would go. And so I called my culinary school and I said, "Hey, look, this is what we're getting ready to start up. Can I do my externship hours here?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So what we learned in school is planning a menu, putting the ingredients together, buying the stuff, cooking it, and serving it. So I did all of that in the soup kitchen. I ended up learning different aspects of some of the needs and desires of Gainesville at the same time. We opened it up to anybody in the community. We didn't have just one targeted area. We invited everybody to come in. We celebrated several anniversaries. We're still going strong even through the pandemic. We stayed open. We're doing to-go menus or to-go orders now, but everything is still homemade. It's still cooked from home. It's either cooked there on site or it's cooked and brought in. But it's the community that's been brought together for this, that gave me the life experiences of learning to hand over, because when I start something, I want to hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning to hand it over to other people is something that has really touched my heart.
Yeah.
And going for the mayor position here, like I said, I'm not political by any means, but giving back to my community, giving to my community is what I'm wanting to do.
So in your opinion, what is your idea of a mayor, and what qualifies a person to be a mayor?
It would depend on what city you're in,
Okay.
to be exact. So with me saying that, I'm going to kind of turn that question on you guys. Okay. As a community member, okay, what would you expect out of a mayor?
I would want our mayor to be someone who actively listens,
Mm.
has a plan, and makes sure to execute that plan. Because a lot of times, like, you have people that say that they're listening, they take in all of this information, and they don't do anything with the information. They see the need of the community, and the community is telling them, like, hey, this is what we need. And it's just nothing's done about it.
Yeah.
So I would personally like someone who sees the need and makes sure that need is met.
How about you?
I am a person about presence. Not just like giving like gifts, but I like those too. But actually, but just has presence. There's a lot of times where when a person can get in a certain position, they have a certain title, and then they feel that, and that door becomes closed. When we don't want that door to become closed, we want that door to be open. We want to see this person. We want to see a presence, and we want to see those person at this event, and not just the what they would consider as the important events, or the events that are televised, or the where there's a lot of social gatherings, or just a lot of not things that where there's media attention. We need presence where it could be any type of little fundraiser or something that may not be on the paper or may not be, but we would like to see, I would like to see someone that has presence to show that every event or function, fundraiser, just community event is just as important as the next one, because they all help build our community and make the community what it is. So just having that, being down to earth, just having that very down to earth and connection with people and having a presence.
How about you, Austin?
I think that for me, somebody that's going to be a mayor, somebody that's going to be leading, has to have a large amount of resilience, a very, very large amount of resilience, and then vulnerability. That's really what I want to see. I think that resilience is synonymous with someone that has strength, because you're able to be knocked down and come back up. You're resilient in the efforts of, you might have a plan, and that plan you might want to be executing it this way, but that plan might fail. And there's a certain amount of vulnerability and resilience that has to be there in order to say, okay, I had this plan, didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Now what's best? Now how do we move forward? And I think that is something oftentimes that politicians, leaders, they forget that, they're representative of the people in the town. It's not just their ideas and their own agenda on there. I'm an individual, and I can have my opinions every which way, but I'm also not an elected official or vying for an elected office. So there's an aspect of that I'm like, it's a tough job for that mayor, and that mayor has to have resilience to be able to bounce back when their plan that they may have thought was best was not actually best for everybody. And then that vulnerability, it takes a lot of vulnerability for someone to admit that they were wrong.
Yes, it does.
And I think more often than not, humans are wrong. In any aspect. And I think it takes that vulnerability. And if for me, I want a mayor that has the vulnerability to say, oh, well, I was actually wrong. And I guess transparency also goes in with those.
Accountability.
Yes.
All of those attributes that are those 12-letter words that I really think should be embodied by anyone that Because I mean, at the end of the day, whoever's mayor is human.
Yeah.
And they've got to have those human qualities. And if they don't, then it creates this weird hierarchy of above and below. And I'm like, well, no, you're working for us. If you're mayor, you're working for the community.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And so just listening to you guys, it's exactly my vision of a mayor, is giving back to your community, listening to your community, finding out what your community wants, involving them, and showing them that they matter to you. They're number one to you, that you are in the back seat and they're in the driver's seat. Just to kind of put it a little more terms there. So that's what I see as a mayor. With
those qualifications, those parameters that we've set,
okay,
what are your top 3 priorities if you get elected?
I'm going to start with my third priority and go forward.
Perfect.
So my third priority would be to go through and look at all of our streets here in town.
Okay.
Talk to our neighbors or streets and see what they would like to have done, whether there be speed bumps for where children are playing to make the streets safer. I know there's some areas we need sidewalks that don't have sidewalks for people that want to go out and walk in their neighborhood and stuff. We need to get some more sidewalks in and kind of fix our stop signs, some of our yield signs and things like that. So just kind of talk to the neighborhoods and stuff and see where they want to see their streets improved. Yeah. Number 2 would be try and get a little bit more youth involvement in different things. If I don't get elected mayor, one program that I am looking to try and implement into an event is walk a mile in someone's shoes.
Okay.
And I would like to try and get some of our veterans, our youth involved, and kind of have them spend a day with these people and just see what they went through their childhood up until where they sit today. So it's kind of like a walk a mile in their shoes, get to know each other on a different aspect. My number 1 thing is have more community events. Yeah, we have spring fling, we have depot days and stuff like that, but have more community events. I had, I think you were there last Thursday, the community dinner. A lot of people were telling me the next day that they were kind of surprised because they thought it was kind of a political campaign type dinner, and it wasn't. But they ended up, I tried to get you guys to talk a little bit, but just going around listening, everybody had fun. They got to just sit there, breathe, take a deep breath, and just relax.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's my number 1 thing is more community events.
Great things to tackle on as mayor office. One of your third priority, the transportation infrastructure. It's a very hot button topic for the streets in the town. It seems that anytime anything is approved with any sort of spending, the first thing is, well, why isn't that money going to the streets? Why isn't that happening? Do you have any, sort of execution plan for the improving street infrastructure, or how do you plan to do that?
Well, I do know that speaking with all of the commissioners is going to be the number 1 thing. Yeah. And sitting down with each one of them and saying, okay, here's your sections and stuff like that. What do your neighbors tell you in your neighborhoods that needs to be improved in your streets? Let's get that implemented. Yeah. Let's start here and work different sections. Say, give you a month, get this set started, and so forth until everything is the way it's supposed to be. I know we're getting ready to start working on 35 and stuff like that. To me, honestly, I think our streets need to be done first because we need our streets.
Yeah.
We need safer streets, especially for our youth.
Yeah. And there's oftentimes, you drive through town, they just did Culberson and they just did Broadway, but also like the historic district. The streets, I've lived here all my life. Those streets have always been impeccable, which is great. That it looks very pretty over there. It's beautiful over there. But there's there's aspects of it that there's many more streets in town.
Yes.
And so the idea of talking to the council members and working together with them, that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned sidewalks. Do you think that, Gainesville being the size that it is, do you think we have enough transportation options within the town?
We do not.
Okay. So what are some ideas that you have for creating more?
I do know of a couple of gentlemen. Were you still there when Solo and everybody when they went up on stage and announced? There's a gentleman that is starting a project here in town. Their first one it's a rap concert starting on May 1st. Well, they've also started a taxi service.
Oh.
I know back in the 90s, a really good friend of my mom's had a taxi service here. And once he got to where...
I was a part of that.
Once that kind of went away, we ended up relying only on taps. Taps only runs a certain time of day and stuff like that. So we need more, like, I don't want to say Uber or anything like that, but more taxi services, because that would bring community members involved.
Yeah. And
the people that know the community would be better taxi drivers than bringing someone in from Dallas. Yeah. So that would be a number one.
And that taxi service, I mean, it really did help out. I mean, my experience with the taxi service is I was a teen mother. And so I had my daughter my junior year in high school. But I didn't have a car. And so part of a program that they had in high school was, oh, darn it, I forgot what the name of the program was. But whatever the case, the program was, it was a program encouraging, teen mothers to stay in school. And the PEP program.
Yes, PEP program, yes.
And so the PEP program was they worked in conjunction with the taxi service to transport our kids back and forth to school and everything, because when we didn't have school buses, wouldn't allow car seats on. They wouldn't allow car seats on the school bus, and so we didn't know how to get our kids to daycare. And so the PEP program worked with the taxi service in Gainesville to come and pick us up and our children, and in our taxi, and take our kids to daycare, drop our kids off at daycare, and then brought us to school every day. And so that was a good collaboration, and it was very helpful in the transportation for teen moms. And so I love the taxi back in the 90s.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't been out to the school to a high school to see if we have any things like that anymore. I know. What year did you graduate?
98.
Okay, so 92.
Okay.
So I know the PEP program that you're talking about. So I'm hoping the PEP program is still there, because that would be very beneficial for our community to bring the taxis back for that, because I know some of the buses don't have that. And I've seen some of the vans that transport to the daycares and stuff like that, they're full. Yeah. So to have the teen moms and stuff be able to drop their kids off to the daycares, because we've got a wonderful daycare here now. And so take them to the daycare with the teen mom and stuff like that. Take the mom back to school. Take the mom to work, whatever the mom needs to do. Have our local community, like I said, they're the ones that know our community streets better than anybody.
And it creates jobs for,
yes,
for
it
the
does.
transportation infrastructure. And I mean, you said you didn't want to say Uber, but I'm like, with Uber comes Uber Eats. And I would not
Well, I mean, we do have Lyft in town.
And we do have Texoma delivery. So there are things there that, do you have any plans on, bolstering those things or helping to uplift some of those things that are more local?
We can. I mean, if they're willing to expand into more of the taxi service besides the Texoma Eats and the Uber Eats and stuff like that, then we can use them. I mean, that would be, they're part of our community. They know our streets. That would be ideal for them if they're willing to partner with that idea.
So what are your thoughts on, Gainesville's not terribly big, but moving towards green energy is a huge thing in our day and age now. And for me personally, I'm like, it'd be great. We live right next to the walking trail. Yes. But it would be great to be able to, navigate anywhere in town with bike lanes or with running lanes or things like that. Make it more pedestrian driven.
That's part
Wow.
of the improvement of the streets.
Yeah.
Is making it easier. Yeah, we do have this beautiful walkway.
Yeah.
This walking path and stuff like that. But how do you get to it?
Yeah.
Where does it start? Where does it end? Most people don't know.
Yeah.
Some people have been here for years and don't know it's there.
Yep.
So if we have opening spots somewhere, throughout the neighborhoods even,
Yeah.
that would be ideal.
Even if it was something that, you end the bike trail and
Yes.
then it turns into a bike lane
Yes.
at a street or something like that. That's something that I think would be really beneficial in the town.
Yes.
Get people outside. Then it becomes, that in tandem with a taxi service or something like that. There's,
Yes.
there's parks all over the town. It'd be great to have a bike lane that connects all of them. There's, you see kids all the time riding their bikes around town just on the streets.
Yeah.
So how cool would it be to have a safer designated lane
Yes.
all the way around?
And I think that would be one of the most amazing things here, because more and more there's a lot of youth that are riding bikes. There's a lot of older adults riding bikes. There's a lot of people that are wanting to go out walking, but they really can't because there's nowhere safe actually for them to walk. Some people don't want to walk on the trail. They want to walk around their neighborhood, but they can't because they have to fight with oncoming traffic and stuff because they don't have the sidewalks or they don't have designated areas.
And so another last thing on the transportation infrastructure, kind of a hot topic that's been brought up several times that I know of within my lifetime, is the fact that there's only one overpass to go over the train. So, if you live in Gainesville, the staple of Gainesville is the train that runs through the middle of town.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on an additional over underpass?
I've actually had some businesses that have voiced the annoyance of the train.
Yeah.
One of the major things is the horn. I know I was sitting out somewhere on one Saturday and it went through 9 times in 30 minutes. So,
was that the train?
Yeah, it was the train.
What perfect timing.
I know you guys are talking about.
No, I do think we do really need to have another overpass somewhere along the downtown area. Because I will say, I have come in the mornings, especially to Grandin, California, and traffic is backed up because of the train.
Yeah.
Amtrak stopping there, they're only there a couple seconds. That's okay. But when our big train comes through, they're stopped. It's like an hour and a half later, they're still sitting. So I think we do need one.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how to implement it and get it in there, and also get in. A lot of people have gotten used to the horn blowing and stuff like that. But if you're on a conference call or a video or doing something like this and you hear that train horn, it's like, hang on a second, I got to stop and wait for the horn to go through. So I think we should try and talk to the train depot about maybe doing a silence alarm and having something that lets us know that they're coming, but not blare it through downtown.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also a very good idea.
Yeah.
That's great. So moving on to kind of the financial stability of the town with some of the ideas that you've thrown out. What are some ways that you plan to kind of bolster the financial stability within the town if you're elected?
Oh, where should I start? We want to keep our money here. We want to keep our local businesses happy. We want to keep them open. With the pandemic, it really hurt a lot of our local businesses. We've lost a lot. We've also gained a lot. I think we need to have more recognition of our local businesses to bring in more revenue. I know they have shop downtown and stuff like that, but that's in the downtown area. Some people that are on this side of the tracks don't really know about the shopping downtown because they're not included in the downtown shopping. So we need to kind of expand our shopping this way a little bit, our shopping days. Basically bringing like people from Dallas, because sometimes we go to Dallas to shop. So let's bring Dallas to us to shop.
Yeah.
So don't bring the businesses here, just bring the consumers here.
Yeah.
So we need to do more attractive events for our community to bring the shoppers to us. Let's make Gainesville I know we're the host city and stuff like that. Let's make Gainesville the shopping city as well. Let's make it the perfect destination for a weekend. We have all these wineries here. We have the Red Fox Lounge. We have Croots. We have all these businesses that are here, our awesome food trucks and stuff like that, and our bed and breakfast. Let's close those down by overstocking them with people from out of town to shop.
Yeah. So you mentioned the pandemic.
Yes.
It's definitely changed a lot in the world.
Yes.
What challenges do you think you might face, budgeting for the city? I mean, we're still in the midst of the pandemic. There's still so much uncertainty. What challenges do you think you might face, and how do you think you'll overcome those?
Some of the things I face is the injection, for one. There's a lot of people that I noticed that it's getting ready to go away from Gainesville, that minus the second rounds. There's a lot of people that didn't want it to come to Gainesville. So that's going to be a major hurdle, is a lot of people are going to be like, okay, why did it leave? We didn't get ours. But as far as the financial status and stuff like that, it boils down to the treasurer sitting down with the commissioners and, everybody that's involved and saying, okay, this is where we were before the pandemic. This is where we were in the middle of the pandemic, and this is where we are currently. Let's figure out how we can increase instead of decrease. Let's figure out what needs to be worked on the most.
Yeah. One of the ways to increase that would be bringing more consumers here.
Yes.
Any specific ideas that you have to bring more consumers here? Any sort of events or things like that?
I've got some planning in my head. I just have to execute them like on paper, get some people to kind of bounce ideas from. One event is opening up Leonard Park and having a big, some type of community barbecue or something like that, to where we bring people in from outside to come and shop. Yeah, we have Spring Fling, but mainly our community that goes to Spring Fling. Let's go and advertise it down in Denton. Let's go to Dallas and advertise it. Let's bring everybody here for our Spring Fling.
Yeah.
Same thing with Oktoberfest. Let's bring people here. Our Depot Days. Let's bring people here. We have our Summer Sounds, I heard, is coming back. Let's bring people from Dallas and stuff here to Summer Sounds. Let's don't just advertise it in our little community. Let's bring it. Let's go farther south and let's go farther north, and let's bring everybody to us, and let them see how wonderful and how beautiful our community is and how much we love each other, and that will bring in what we need.
Oh, kind of back to some economic and small business development. You talk about our downtown area. It's really, in my lifetime, within the last 10 years, the downtown area has really started to boom.
Yes.
I mean, you said you moved back in 2016, so even within that time, there's been a lot of booming there. The 3582 junction has started to boom. I mean, it did not look like that.
No.
When I left for college in 2014, half of those businesses weren't there.
No.
And then I came back and I was like, what? Where are you? Where did
now, I know when I left in 2005, Burger King is where Taco Bueno is currently. Starbucks is still where it's at. Dairy Queen's still and all that. But I mean, it's just like when I came back and I saw what was there when I came back in 16. Because it's gone through 3 businesses since I've been here. I think it's on its 4th one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just Arby's. Yeah, Arby's was there. We need to encourage more of our community makers to get storefronts.
Yeah.
To bring their product that they make at home, that they take their heart and soul into making, and bring it to the community and get storefronts and sell their stuff. Bring more community involvement in that way too.
Yeah. So on that note, is that how do you plan to achieve, more business diversity in the town with business owners, with business types? How do you plan to bolster that aspect of economic business and development?
Have a meeting with all of the business owners. Sit down and ask them, okay, so you have restaurant, you have a boutique. What other type of business would you like to see come into town?
Yeah.
What do you feel would be beneficial that would help support your business in having another business from a community member coming in?
Are you more in favor of the small business or more of like the franchises or corporations or both? Or what is your take on what needs to come in?
Kind of both. I feel we need more small businesses, more community-owned businesses. Very little on the franchises. We have a lot of franchise businesses here and not a whole lot of community-owned. And I think we really need to push the small business because we are a small community. We are one, basically, and we need to show each other that we are that one.
In that aspect, would you make any changes or any plans to make any changes to zoning ordinances or anything like that within the town?
It would depend on what would need to change as far as the other businesses go. It would be what they would like to see come in.
Okay.
So whatever, the businesses would want would be where the zoning and stuff like that would come in. Types of businesses. We've got a lot of boutiques, a lot of restaurants, gas stations, and stuff like that. We need more health food things, for one. We need more vitamins, vitamin shops, things like that. We need, I know we have the green, over here on Grand, the nursery.
Callaway?
Yeah, we need more nursery things like that to where people can do stuff like that. We need, just different things.
Yeah.
Just off ideas.
Yeah. And I know for me personally, I'm like, I would like to see more diversity within the business owners.
Yes.
We'd like to see more Black-owned business, like to see more LGBTQ plus owned business, and how there's an aspect of it that you don't see that representation a lot around here. How do you plan to make the community more inviting and make it to be a place that people that are in these historically marginalized groups know that they can come here and have a business that can thrive?
Let's have a community event. Let's bring them together. Let's let them love on each other. Let's let them show we are one person. We're one city, one community. You're welcome no matter if you're pink, purple, what you are.
Yeah.
You're welcome here. You're welcome to open a business here.
Over the last year, there's been a lot of happenings within the pandemic. One of the hottest things that happened in Gainesville was the July 2020 vote by the city council to remove the Confederate statue in Leonard Park.
Yes.
Had you been on city council, how do you think you would have voted in that vote?
Before I answer, I'm going to turn it on you guys. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you guys, how would you have wanted the vote to come out? Which direction would you guys have wanted as a community, growing up here, living here, and having that statue here all your life? How does that affect you with it being gone?
I mean, I think the decision that was made was the best decision for the community. I know a lot of people disagree, but I feel like it was something that was offensive and it was something that didn't belong where it was. No one was asking for it to be burned to the ground. No one was asking for it to be destroyed. They were just simply asking for it to be moved. And so I think that the best case scenario is what happened. It was just simply removed.
I agree. That it was a certain memorial that it was a monument that had a different meaning at the time, and that meaning doesn't particularly represent what Gainesville is wanting to be, in my opinion. And so, even though you don't have to, like I said, destroy what Gainesville may have been, that may not particularly be what Gainesville needs to continue to be represented of. And so if you have parts of history, then parts of history like are in a museum. And so, why not take those parts of history like they do and put those in a place where they need to be. But is that something that we want, that if we want to bring people in, is that, and we're representing Gainesville as somewhere where everyone wants to come in, are we going to bring them in with this giant monument that represents not welcoming everyone in? So, and so in my opinion, like I said, don't destroy it particularly, but move it in a place where it can be used for historical value, and around other historical things, so that can be remembered, so that can be a part of history in its place. But not particularly as a monument of what Gainesville is.
And I mean, I agree as well. The historical context of the statue, the historical context of Leonard Park being the whites only park within the town, and the fact that there are still people alive today that weren't allowed to play in that park when they were children. What does a Confederate statue say to those people that weren't allowed, to the Black population that weren't allowed to play there? And there are aspects of it that I'm like, no one's trying to rewrite history. No one's trying to, we definitely don't want to repeat that part of our history, but in order to not repeat it, it doesn't need to be shown in everyone's faces. And there's aspects of it that I equate it a lot to, there's not very many other countries where the losing side erects statues. That's just not something that typically happens, especially when the losing side was fighting for something that was really not great. Yes, you can say the Civil War was about states' rights, but it's states' rights to what? Own people. That's the cut and dry of it, in my opinion. And I look at it and I'm like, it's would be much more beneficial in a museum, much more beneficial in a place where we can learn about it. Because right now, as it stands, because it is still there, the vote's been to remove it, but it's obviously a tool of oppression and a tool of this is what it stood for at the time, and the context of it is just not a good one. Right. So for me, I'm like, it's got to go. It needs to go.
So with it going into a museum and stuff like that, I know I'm kind of turning the conversation on you guys, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. I mean, it's important to know what the community feels, because to me, I really don't feel like the community got to really voice their opinion on the statue. I feel like they decided to go in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Talk to the Daughters of the Confederate and say, okay, basically you guys don't have a choice, So with it going into a museum, with the opportunity for it to have a better understanding and a better home and stuff like that, are you willing to take your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews over to that museum to learn about that statue?
Personally, I feel like once Gainesville gets to a point to where I feel like we're beyond that, then yeah, sure, I can be like, this is where we were, this is where we are now. But I don't think that that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, I mean, and she's 3, so she'd be like, Mom, what? But I just feel like once we get to a point to where it's obvious that there's been growth, then it would be nice to take her to be like, at one point this was in the park, it was voted on, it's removed, and this is how far Gainesville has come. But again, we're just not there yet. Like, there's nothing for me to educate her on, because I feel like the mindset of Gainesville is still kind of in the same mindset that when the statue was put there.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're slowly progressing, but again, we're just not there yet.
I would eventually, I think that that's something that I could take my family to go see. I mean, we're big museum people anyhow, but I believe that there are so many, I mean, there are instances, I mean, there are places like we go to the African American Museum in Dallas. I mean, we go to art museums, we go to, so history is there. And I mean, even museums like that show the oppression, and they show the things, but they do show the triumphs as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what a museum should do. It shows the good and the bad and all everything in between, and as part of history. So I think that, and actually I think that could even be more beneficial, because our little Morton Museum that we have right now could use a little more stuff in it. It could use a little more historical. So I think that, things like that, it could be a story to tell. It could help give more of a story of, this is where, these are the things that we need to do. These are the things, this is why this is here. So I think it would add to what we have. So yeah, I mean, eventually I don't see why I wouldn't bring my family to it, but it's just telling those stories, like Gionna said, I don't think that we're still living that age, and so it doesn't seem like history now. It doesn't seem like history because it's still our present.
Yeah.
So once it does become history, it is something like, okay, let's memorialize and let's go to a museum to see history. But if we're living it in the present, then it's really not history yet. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with both of what you said, Gionna and Annjeanette. I mean, it's something that we are not to a point where there's equity completely across the board in Gainesville. And for me, I'm like, putting it in a museum is something that depicts a more accurate history of Gainesville, and a more complete history, because there is not a thing in this world that is purely good, purely amazing all the time. That's just not reality. Every person, everything has a quote unquote bad side. So the good and bad of things is typically subjective based on who you ask.
Yeah.
And for me, it is something that, I don't have kids personally, but my niece and nephew are young, and they deserve to know an accurate history. That's how you don't repeat things.
Yes.
And there are aspects of it that I'm like, LTST is a huge avenue to creating conversation and creating the conversation that gets us to that point.
Yes.
That gives people that are within historically marginalized groups a chance to voice their opinions and a chance to be heard within Gainesville.
Yes.
And
so can I piggyback on that
of course.
And ask you a question there, because I know that you mentioned that you felt that they made a decision for us without having really, but on the people, the councilmen that voted on it, are they not of a diverse group, in your opinion? I mean, because you would think that most organizations, or most those committees or organizations or anything, would have a diverse group of people that would be voting on that. And if they all voted unanimously, correct, on that, then they would have had to come with different views to come to a consensus on that. I mean, do you feel that it was a diverse enough group of people, or do you think there was like camaraderie? Like, how do you feel that decision was made?
I feel that there was a little lacking of diversity in there, because look at what we're going through today. There's a lot of, and I'll just be honest, there's a lot of, you're on this side of the tracks, you can't come over here in Gainesville. And that's not what we need here. So having the diversity in Gainesville would be tearing down that wall at the tracks, going across and shaking each other's hands and having that. So to answer your question, I think there could have been a little bit more diversity in the decision. Yes, the decision to bring it down and put it in a museum, yes, it was the right decision. But it's like you guys said, we need to be at the point to where we can share that with our kids and stuff like that. And I feel having more community involvement is what's going to get us there. And not have, as we sit, not having that community involvement isn't going to. So we need to have more events that bring the community together, more dinners, more lunches, more coffees, anything. And I think I feel we can get there.
And so, in the past 5 years or so, the majority of the votes that have happened by City Council have all been voted on unanimously or voted against unanimously.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, like, they're doing a pretty good job of
Yeah.
working together to do things or not do things in a certain aspect. How do you plan to, if elected, continue that working together and be the best to allow all the voices of constituents in the town to be heard?
Bring in pros and cons, make a list, have everybody write down what they're for on specific topics, what they're against. Have our community do the same thing. Bring our community in, let them help us decide on different things. I feel there's a lot of stuff that's been happening here that the community involvement is not there. And to me, that's not fair. I think we need to get involved more, and having the pros and cons weighed on everybody. That way we can sit down as a council and say, okay, this is what Austin thinks. This is what Annjeanette thinks. This is what Gionna thinks. This is what they're against. How do we adjust it to where we all come in agreement with everybody in the community and put this into play?
So, over the last year, with the statue, with just the things going on in our country, they've definitely trickled down to Gainesville, and it's brought up a lot of things that happen within the town. And there's kind of across the board, Gainesville's often had a pretty, and I'm speaking from my own experience and growing up in Gainesville has a pretty skewed perception of historically marginalized communities, meaning BIPOC, LGBTQ plus people, religious minorities, whichever minority it is. There's a lot of assumptions that are made about any individual from those groups. How do you, and that's something that curtails people from wanting to come here, from wanting to stay here. When I left for college, I never thought that I was going to come back, because I was just like, I don't see anything for myself here as a gay man. So how do you plan to let all people know that they are welcome here, and move Gainesville into more of a place that embraces diversity?
I honestly thought you were just a human. I didn't see anything else different about you. I see you as a human. I see you as a human. I don't see color. I don't see gender. I see human.
And see, there's, I love that. And I do appreciate that, because at the core, we are all human.
Yes.
I think there is an argument to be made, though, of if we're not, and labels are obviously not for everybody, and I don't claim that labels are for everybody, but there is a certain aspect of, I can't, Gionna and Annjeanette, you can't separate the fact that you are Black women from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You three can't separate the fact that you're women from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't separate my sexuality from myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's where those assumptions come in the sentiments of not seeing color and seeing everyone as human. It leaves room for that assumption to be made. Whereas if we're embracing these labels and embracing these things as, you are a human, and human can encompass all of these wonderful things and the spectrum of all of these things. How do we move Gainesville into explicitly being, a place that allows for anyone of any race, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, any identity to be here? How do you plan to move us more into that?
I'm going to kind of zone in on you a little bit, because you were there Thursday night. Mm-hmm. How did you feel being amongst everybody that was there? Did you feel separated from everybody?
I didn't feel separate, because I've learned to just, I don't want to say adapt, but I'm used to being the only Black person in a room in Gainesville a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you don't even notice it anymore. And that's not even a positive thing at this point. That's kind of like a negative thing. Like, you don't even notice that you're the only Black person in the room because 90% of the time you are. No, I did not feel uncomfortable, but it would have been nice to see more people that looked like me in that room. Because
There was another one in there.
Okay.
She owns a notary business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just because, like, we're a part of the community.
Mhm.
Therefore, I feel like it should be on both sides. Like, it
Yes.
should just be, you know, community in bloom and not have community as a
Mhm.
whole in, you know, in that particular event. So I feel like Austin was saying, it should be okay for us to be our authentic selves in whatever way that looks.
Yes.
And I feel like Gainesville a lot of times puts you in a box.
Mhm.
And if you accomplish something as a minority, it's like, oh, you're the first, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, why couldn't it just be that I accomplished it because I accomplished it, period. You don't see many Black-owned businesses in the historic district.
No.
I think there's one, Jordan Hubbard. And to me, it's like there's a lot of Black people that live in Gainesville that have
Mhm.
businesses. And it's like they have to have their businesses outside of the historic district. And for what reason? Like, why can't they have their businesses in the historic district? There's so many different empty
Exactly.
buildings down there. And I guarantee it's because they don't feel comfortable. I guarantee it's because they feel like they're going to be told no before they even send that application, or
But they don't have the resources or the support
right?
to even get there,
Mm-hmm.
to get the loans, to get the whatever, to get whatever is needed to even open up.
Yeah.
So how do we get to a point where we feel like we're more welcomed? Because it's like I do appreciate your intention of saying that, or your the idea of not seeing color and everything, but then at the same time we have to see the color. But what is but we have to see it, but we can also embrace it. We can also accept it. We can also welcome it, empathize with it. Just because, I wouldn't know, I don't know the struggles that you've been through in your life, as far as, and you don't know the struggles that I've been through. I mean, heck, you may have been gone through more struggles than I have, and whatever, who knows?
Yeah.
But I have to see those. I don't want to be blind to them, but I want to empathize with them. I want to see them, to welcome them, to embrace them, and to work with them.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of along the lines, and that's just me personally, it's not everybody's doing it, but that's how I think that's how I would like to see it more of. I accept that you're you. I accept that you're, want somebody to see me as an old grandma, not just a Black woman. I want them to see my education. I want them to see what the things that I'm coming for, and then say, that's okay. You're okay. It's good. You bring you as you are. Welcome to Gainesville.
And that's what that's what I would like to do. That's what I want to do. Bring that diversity here. Bring our business owners that are outside of the historic district into the historic district. Don't leave them out. I want them forward, front. I want people to know they're here. I want them to feel loved like everybody else. I don't want them to feel unloved. I don't want you guys to feel unloved. I don't want you guys to feel like you have to climb up into your turtle shells or anything like that. No, I want you guys to come out. I want you guys to embrace the day. And that's what I'm looking to do, to try and change Gainesville's view.
And within that, when it comes to businesses as well, having to see how we need to work on, bringing those jobs and bringing those things, but also bringing in salaries. I personally, like an experience that I had, one of the reasons why I am southbound is to support my family.
Yeah.
I was, I've had opportunities to stay here, but with some of the jobs that I've had, or some of the salaries aren't there that would support my family. So I had to go I had to go south
Yeah.
to work, or to, even though this is my roots aren't being supported. And so
Yeah.
how can we create a place where we can have the sustainability to stay here and not have to raise our kids here, but then they're going to have to go to get a job because they can't afford to stay here. So those are just some of the things too that we may need to look into.
Oh yeah.
And figure out.
That's where it goes with the businesses. Figure out what type of big business they want to come here. Okay, we have Walmart, we have Saffron and stuff like that. What other type of business do we want to come here to help build more job opportunities? For instance, more job opportunities for a second chance for some not convicted, but people that are coming out of jail that can't get a job. We need, resources for them to get a job and stuff like that. Let's bring up more shopping opportunities as far as grocery stores go. We have Tom Thumb, we have Lowe's, we have Sivley's, and we have Walmart. Let's bring up a big warehouse of some sort. That gives us more jobs.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we are a little bit past our hour. Is there any last comments or any last questions or anything from anybody?
I do not have anything.
No.
Anything else?
I think I'm good.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.